Well, our outreach team has been at work, and we've been researching lots of ways to help with social services in our county, and we come up with Coffee Oasis as one of the best ways to help people. And so today we want to hear about Coffee Oasis Ministry, and so we invited Daniel and Chase to come. So I'll invite you to come up and talk to us.
Well, thank you so much. Such an honor to be here this morning. And I'm so grateful for your partnership in the mission of the Coffee Oasis to restore community through compassionate youth programs and coffee business. It's so wonderful to meet here together today with the faith and the hope that we have in such a faithful Father, isn't it? Hebrews 10 tells us, "Let us hold unswervingly to the hope we profess, for he who promised is faithful. And let us consider how we may spur one another on toward love and good deeds, not giving up meeting together as some are in the habit of doing, but encouraging one another, and all the more as you see the day approaching." As I considered how we might be spurred on toward love and good deeds this morning, I couldn't help thinking about our founder, Dave Frederick, and how 3 years ago, while working at the Coffee Oasis, he walked with me during some of the most difficult days of my life. It wasn't long after that he began his battle with cancer. During his final week, I had the opportunity to thank Dave for his wise and loving counsel and share the blessing I am now receiving from that time together. I will never forget his encouraging words from that night. David Frederick went to be with Jesus on Saturday, July 3rd. And if you want to understand the Coffee Oasis, you must understand how David and his family began the Coffee Oasis. It has grown over the years, but its heart remains the same. The Frederick family never intended to have a coffee shop. They were missionaries. And here are some excerpts from Dave's obituary. 3 years living in a dangerous jungle region in the Philippines took a toll on everyone's health, and the family was sent home to recuperate. The second year home, Dave became an interim pastor at Lincoln Avenue Bible Church in Bremerton. The plan was to return overseas when the family recovered. In the interim year, they fell in love with Bremerton. Dave accepted the role of senior pastor and held the position for 7 years. During those years, Dave served as a volunteer police chaplain for the Bremerton Police Department. The Fredericks also became a foster family for kids needing a safe and loving home. Dave's work as a police chaplain and being foster parents opened his eyes and heart to the street of life of Bremerton. Dave and Cindy felt God's calling them to invest deeper as a family into the lives of the hurting. In 1996, Dave resigned from the pastorate and began to seek out a place that could be used as a place to care for the hurting youth of Bremerton. In 1997, Dave and Cindy purchased the Coffee Oasis. Ironically enough, Dave was not a coffee drinker. But it seemed like the perfect place to be a base for outreach and to welcome the community. Now, 24 years later, what was a small family endeavor has become a place of refuge and help for hurting youth and a place for good coffee and food for the community. Dave was truly a visionary who went all out in everything he did. He was passionate to show Jesus to everyone he met. In his last days, Dave would say, "I did it all for Jesus." This simple phrase sums up Dave's life. This is the heart of the Coffee Oasis. We do this for and with Jesus. Jesus said, "Whatever you do for the least of these, you do for me." And under the leadership of Dave's son, Daniel Frederick, the Coffee Oasis couldn't be in better hands. Restoring community begins with our coffee business. Our direct trade coffee supports farmers around the world, and there is no better place in the Pacific Northwest to connect with community than over coffee, especially coffee lovingly roasted in-house by our own Michelle and Eric. It provides training and work for our homeless and at-risk youth, and 100% of the proceeds support our youth programs. If you are one of those people who like to drink coffee or eat food, then the Coffee Oasis is a wonderful place for you to be. Or you can have it shipped to your home or church. 100% of the proceeds go to support our youth programs, and these youth programs are for youth between the ages of 13 and 25 years old. They include our youth engagement, youth development, crisis services, and Hope Homes. This first quarter of the year, from January to April, 3,219 youth accessed resources at our drop-in centers. 2,015 bed nights provided for youth through our Hope Homes. 312 case management sessions were for youth, and we had 3,749 responses to crisis text line messages through our 24/7 Oasis crisis text line. I wanted to throw out some numbers, but rather than overwhelm you with the scope of what our programs are doing, this morning I have the privilege of introducing a dear friend and inspiration, Chase, to share what some of our programs look like up close and personal. So, Chase, I just have a few questions for you. If you wanted to come up here.
Absolutely. Very excited to be here.
So, I guess first off, in your experience, why do youth come to the Coffee Oasis?
Well, there are many, many reasons, but personally, I come for the safety, the environment. It's very nice, it's very welcoming, and I just feel like it's a family, it's my second family, that I could just keep coming back to.
So, how did you first hear about the Coffee Oasis?
Well, back in middle school, I believe it was 8th grade, my friend Cameron, he told me about Coffee Oasis. He's like, oh, it's just this place to hang out and stuff, and I'm like, oh, okay, I'll think about it. A couple weeks go by, and then I was approached by an outreach worker, Megan. She's very cool. And she taught me all about, and she told me all the programs, the activities, everything they offer, and I gave it a shot, and then I've just been coming back ever since.
So, it kind of answers this question, but maybe you can go into more detail. What kept you going back to the Coffee Oasis?
Definitely, and I cannot stress this enough, the supervisor. Paul, the center supervisor, he's an amazing guy. He's very welcoming. I can talk to him about anything. I've known him for 8 years, I think now, and I can always come back to whichever center he's stationed at, but I love him, and I could just keep coming back to him.
For yourself, how did the Coffee Oasis most help you?
Definitely schooling. So, there was a year, or I was struggling in school very heavily. I was not doing very well up until my, I think, senior year. There was that year I had many failing grades. Actually, they gave us, you have only 6 classes, right? And that year I had 7 failing grades. I don't even know how, but I was not doing well. So I turned to Coffee Oasis, my only resource. I had access to tutoring, helped me for a couple months, and then I talked to some volunteers. They got me in touch with Discovery Alternative High School. And that's where I graduated before I turned 21. And that was just a huge, huge deal for me.
Are there any memorable moments you could share?
Well, tons, but nothing that specifically sticks out except for camp. We go to Island Lake, which is a faith-based kind of summer camp. We'd go there for a week. You're there with your best friends in a cabin with the supervisor, Paul, of course. And then we would wake up, have breakfast, have organized activities. We would have these talks. We would openly talk about our faith and what we would believe in. I felt incredibly comfortable there, sharing what I do and don't believe. And every year at camp was it just made me feel like I was a part of something. Like Paul, every time he would talk to us, he'd just make us feel so included.
So, how are you still involved with the Coffee Oasis?
Well, actually, a couple weeks ago, I'd say about a month ago, I would teach a class there at the Bremerton Center. It's nothing huge like how to file your taxes or resume building. I'm no expert, but it was more of like a community building thing, team exercise. I would teach kids how to get better at a video game. Doesn't sound all that helpful, but they felt comfortable talking to me. It was amazing. They could come to me, they could talk to me about anything. I'm like, hey, you could do this better. Oh, press the A button. And they're like, how do you feel about Jesus? I'm like, I mean, yeah, let's talk about this later. But it was amazing. I connected with so many youth that I didn't get the opportunity to months prior. But today I'm actually involved in the Youth Advisory Council. And we organize activities and volunteering opportunities to better our community, Kitsap County, and do some fundraisers. We also are a voice for the youth. If they want something done in the youth centers, they come to us, and then we kind of talk to the higher-ups and get a change.
Those were all the questions I had given you. But I'd like to ask you another. So if there is anything else that you could say to anybody who wants to know about the Coffee Oasis, what it means to you, to the youth, what would you say?
Well, I like to think about hypotheticals, right? And you know the whole thing about the butterfly effect, where one thing happens, it could change history. And I've thought of if Coffee-O was never it had never existed, and my life just went on without it, I would be in such a different position in life. Definitely for the negative. And it has just changed my life so incredibly much.
Well, man, I have really appreciated your voice, and I know being up in Kingston when I was up there, to have you come up and share some words as well. You've been a real inspiration to me, and I know so many others. The Coffee Oasis youth programs are a place to offer for the community to invest in their future, the youth. We are committed to a vibrant and growing community of youth and volunteers learning to share life together and growing in love. This is how community is restored. We love our youth, giving them the support and resources they need on a daily basis, regardless of identity or race or anything else, with no strings attached, and we invite the community to join us. The only way for a mission to succeed is through the support of the entire community, intentional, intergenerational, and cross-cultural investment. So I pray that we might be spurred on toward love and good deeds, knowing that whatever we do for one of the least of these, we do for Jesus. And I pray that we might do all of this together. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Fantastic. Ooh.
Thank you, Daniel and Chase. It's really good to hear about the ministry that's happening on the ground, the great things that Coffee Oasis is doing, and how we can be part of it. Thanks.